You're listening to Brave Girls with Tracy Im, where we choose to empower you to be a better leader, mentor, and coach in the world. We'll share stories of people who have achieved great heights by overcoming adversity and rising to the challenge, all while pursuing their passions. These courageous people will inspire you to have faith in yourself and take bold action. Right here with the host of Brave Girls, Tracy Im.
Episode 12, What's Essential with Rayna Diane Hennen. On episode 12, I interview my graphic designer and strategic business partner, Rayna Diane Hennen from Good Fortune Design Studio. On this episode, we talk about the creative process and why it's so important to listen and understand your client and what their business objective is. Rayna's discovery process helped guide the redesign of my blog and was instrumental in landing on the right blend of colors, fonts, and user interface. We did a complete content review as part of the process, and we retired certain aspects of my blog as part of the refresh. Our conversation is focused on how we partnered on my redesign and how we use technology to get the job done, and why having a long-term relationship with the designer pays off in the long run. Rayna shares why you need to think of good graphic design as an investment in your business and when to spend money on a polished presence. Your website is only as strong as you use it. We talk about how podcasting can be beneficial to your search engine optimization and how simple landing pages can help grow your presence online. We talk about making sure your website is mobile responsive, especially as you work to grow your list. Rayna has a free offer that she'll share with us on this episode. Rayna also talks about her passion for riding her motorcycle and how she incorporated this interest into the marketing of her service offerings. She recently published an article in Motorcycle Magazine about resilience that you'll surely want to read. You'll also want to check out her site, Good Fortune Design Studio, to see what I'm talking about. We also talk about the key concepts from the book Essentialism and how to incorporate these principles into a design. We talk about simplification and eliminating clutter. Knowing when to let go and create space for new opportunities is crucial. I think you'll absolutely love Rayna's answer to my finale question. So enjoy. So welcome to Brave Girls with Tracy M. Tonight, I'm so excited. I have Rayna Diane Hennen with me, as she is my own graphic designer that I just absolutely love, and she's from Good Fortune Design Studio. Rayna, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm so excited.
I know, I'm so excited too. So just as a little background, just for our listeners, your area of expertise is graphic design and development in the branding space. And so you've spent a number of years working for other companies, and then you went out on your own, and now you have your own firm, and you've really been doing this for quite some time. So give us a little bit of the backstory of where you got your start, really, or were you always a graphic design kind of kid, or where did that really all start?
So I did a lot of art as a kid, and I was really into photography, which is what my degree is in. And I was in college right when the whole internet coding website thing was taking off, and I took an elective. And when I got out of college, I realized that was kind of fun. So I took a bunch of other classes and really got into it and learned about the design part of it and just kind of jumped right in. And then before you know it, all that time passes and the internet is a completely different animal than it was when I started. It's amazing.
Right, and it continues to change daily. So you went to Ohio University, is that right?
Yes, I go Bobcats.
Okay, there you go. And, so you have a little bit of a unique blend. So a lot of graphic designers don't know the coding and the development piece. And so that probably gives you a unique advantage that you've kind of got the back end of how it's really working in zeros and ones, but then you've got the fonts and the PMS colors and the, those types of things. So I'm really blending them together. So talk a little bit about, when someone comes to you and they say they want some kind of creative project done, whether it's a website, a brochure, marketing material, flyer, postcard, like what's the process that you take people through, especially people who are not graphic design professionally trained like you are.
Mm-hmm. And it does make a difference when it's somebody who's just starting out from scratch, or they're coming to you with branding in place. But when they're wanting to redesign, it's really important to get a feel for who they are. And I think over the years, I've learned that's one of my strengths, is just to listen. And I have a series of questions that I like to walk people through, and you get to hear what they think in their own words. And honestly, sometimes stuff comes out that they've never actually articulated, and it's pretty cool. So, and they get excited when they talk about it, obviously, because they're, a lot of times we don't spend time on our businesses. So you have this time that you carve out where you're thinking about it, and it can regenerate the spark of excitement you had, especially since you're rebranding. You want to be excited about it. So we walk through those questions, and then I actually go in and I dig through people's social media, not in a creepy way, I promise. Like for you, it was your Pinterest account actually that really helped me also with visually getting there. And, you start to look at what their audience is and what they're trying to do with their messages, and you get to feel for who they are. And that all starts to form an image in my head as to what's going to come out on the blank canvas eventually, which is, I like to joke. People are like, I can't wait to see it. And I say, me too.
Right. Because sometimes you don't even know, as you're like being this artist, as you kind of walk through it. Yeah, I know when we worked together, it helped me as because I did have a blog out there. I called it sort of my online brochure resume, that I was, I wanted the WordPress technology in place was the main thing when I first started, just to have my domain name as I was trying to figure out what my brand was and how I wanted to present myself to the world and the types of service offerings and products that I'd be offering out into the world. And I found your discovery phase and the process that you took me through, it was hard sometimes answering those questions. And you would really push me and be like, okay. And you would say, and then what? And then what? And then you just kept digging to like the next layer. And even some of the things that I came back with surprised me. But it seems like you've really kind of nailed that first discovery aspect that will then, and like you say, you listen, you have these questions, you dig deep, you look all around at, who that person is, especially when you're doing a personal brand,
Yes.
Right? So it's different than say doing say a product that somebody's trying to sell, but specifically in the personal branding space, it's so important to see who this person is and who they're trying to appeal to.
It's true. And it feels like people say it a lot, where it's about you, it's about the customer, but it does. I mean, certainly a personal brand, I try to keep myself out of it for as long as possible. Eventually, I have a style to what I do, and it's in there, but we really want that to take a back seat to Tracy M, for example. I want to present you in the best way that feels like you. Because really that's what I'm doing. It's like a team thing, right? I'm supporting you. So.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I know the other thing that in working with you that was really helpful was, it wasn't like we sat next to each other. I mean, we're in different states, we're in the same time zone, but using the project management tool Asana was really helpful. Using Dropbox was really helpful. And we were able to really manage it together and divide up the roles and responsibilities. And as I would finish one thing and then you'd finish something and send it back to me. And so, the fact that we were both comfortable with those technologies really, I think, expedited, the project, even though it took us, different time and fits and starts. But at the end of the day, I absolutely love what you did with the colors, the fonts that you came up with, the design, the flow, in terms of pulling it together. And then also when we were looking at planning for the future, right? Knowing that this podcast was coming, knowing that we needed a back-end plugin that needed to have something that would functionally work, but then also designing the graphics so that we were thinking ahead of what are the future design needs for, the business. So I think that's always really important too. It's I think sometimes people take maybe a once and done approach, and it doesn't serve them after they've made this investment. And it truly is, graphic design's an investment. So talk to me a little bit about that, and how, people are like, oh, I can get a website for $500 on Fiverr or whatever,
Right.
how do you overcome that? Because I'm sure you hear that a lot.
Yeah. Even my dad asked me, who is, he's a teacher in a university, and he was like, now, how does that work for you? And a lot of designers would feel that it does kind of encroach on the space and maybe they don't charge enough. But I would say that there are definitely times when it's beneficial. I mean, there are some businesses you start, you just really lean. And when you were saying you had your website up there and it was like your resume brochure type thing, you got it out there. And starting is better than never doing anything and waiting to be able to spend the money on a really, polished presence. I believe that it's important to eventually invest in that. And your website is not something that's a one and done. One of my favorite things to say is the best and worst thing about a website is you can always change it. And you should always be changing it. It's not just search rankings, but it's also something for your customers to come back to. It's only as strong as you use it. If you don't link out to it, if you don't share it, then it's just sitting there and it's just pretty, but it should work for you.
Yeah. So what are some of the ideas that you give to people to make it to make their website really work for them? Like, what are some of the maybe bells and whistles that people should think about so that it's not just a pretty brochure that is sitting on a domain name?
I think in your case, the podcast is a really good example in like planning forward and knowing that you're going to be adding new content. Blogging and podcasting, I'm sure, isn't for everybody, but it's the easiest way to say, you keep your website updated, and that's, search engines love that. They come back and they're like, oh, new content, and it shoots you up further in the rankings because it shows Google that basically somebody lives at the address and isn't just letting it sit there. I definitely tell people to link out to it from social media. Share it with people as much as you can. If you have even additional landing pages, and I say website, and it can mean your landing page, because some people have a single page. I've done a couple of those for people. They're just simple one-person practices, and they just need what would be considered a landing page. So I think of them interchangeably. They're the same thing. But it's also what you do out in, unfortunately, gosh, okay, that's what I was trying to remember what I told that woman with the landing page. She doesn't really have any social media, except she had a LinkedIn. And I said, at the very least, you need to go in there and you need to put your URL on your LinkedIn profile, and you need to update your bio to say that you work at the company, that you own the company. Really, you need to get it mentioned. And it isn't everything. People in person stuff is just as important. Handing out your business cards and meeting people and knowing that presence is there and they can learn more about you.
Right. Yeah. The thing as I go out and I do more speaking, more public workshops, more speaking to different groups of people, the people nowadays, everybody has their phone. And so as soon as you stand up there and you say, hi, I'm so-and-so,
yes,
immediately Google you. They're going to you want immediately for them to go to some kind of very mobile responsive website that's going to give them in 6 seconds who you are and why they should listen to you. And then, it's always good to have something free that they can get. And, and that's the way to capture your email addresses. And so really having that in place, I think, is important. One of my goals this year is to really build my email list as I go out and I speak, and a lot of these speaking engagements, I'm not getting paid, but it's more about my visibility in the marketplace. And I want to capture people's email addresses so that then I can keep in touch with them. So when I do have an offer that they may be interested in, boom, it's going to land in their inbox. So it's really creating that know, like, and trust factor that's so important, especially when you're a personal brand or you're a solopreneur and you're really trying to get people to know who you are.
Yeah, it actually, and that just happened to me at a networking event yesterday. I was talking to a guy, and when the session was over, he goes, "Wait, let me look at your website," right there on the spot. And it was like, ooh, thank goodness I am mobile responsive.
Right, right, right. Yeah, and I know I was part of a mastermind with you where we actually talked about your interest in motorcycles and
Mm.
riding motorcycles. So talk a little bit about that because you've been able to incorporate that into your personal brand and your business brand. So, so talk a little bit about your interest there.
Motorcycling is, I ride a 450-pound dirt bike off-road, and I like to say that it's the best thing I never knew I wanted to do. And it was in that mastermind that we came up with a lot of the fun titles for, keep your business moving forward, rev your website and stuff like that. I think it adds a sense of fun to it. Sometimes it's hard to get your personality across, your sense of humor, especially if you're working on, when I'm looking at my own brand, it's very I ask other people because it's hard to see yourself. But I love motorcycling. I think it's actually loosened me up a lot because you just kind of have to be. So, yeah.
Right, right. So, what was the trip that you took out west?
Oh, Rawhide. It's an off-road motorcycle school that BMW hosts. Yeah. So that was a big investment, but it's motorcycling. It's one of the, if you're going to do it, to me, I feel that way about everything. You invest in your website, you invest in yourself, self-care, you invest in stuff that's outside of your business that has nothing to do with it. And I sit at a desk all day. Motorcycling was just really, really good to get out of my own head and my own space. And this class it was only the second time they'd ever offered an all women's class. And so, it was not cheap, but there was no way I was passing that up. And it was worth every shuttle bus, every airplane, every whatever layover, any butterflies. I mean, the women were phenomenal. I'm actually going to see them this summer for another ride, and I'm really excited about it.
That's awesome. So it was what, 30 women or less that.
Yeah, it was less. It was, maybe
So
10.
10, yeah. So intimate group, and
Yes.
they teach you like cycle safety as well as techniques and things like that. And
This was definitely a lot of technique, and especially, sometimes for women it can be harder when you drop your bike to pick it up. And they showed us this awesome technique where two people can do it, and you exert less energy for both people, and the bike comes up, and you're just like, what? That was so cool.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think it's that interest of yours being translated into your personal brand makes you unique and memorable. So you featured me as your client spotlight, and then I forwarded that to, of course, my mom and my sister, and they loved your motorcycle banner with a woman riding a motorcycle like that, like just really stuck with them and struck them, and they were like, wow, you really picked an amazing, interesting woman to work with for your, basic personal branding or whatever. And so it's memorable.
Thanks,
Right?
Mom.
Yeah, exactly. It was my aunt too. She really thought that was interesting. So, yeah. So, the other thing I wanted to ask you is there any particular book that you would encourage people to read, either on branding or business, or something that maybe over the last 15, 20 years that you've used that you kind of go back to? I know the one book you and I read that we talked a lot about was Essentialism.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was, and I was never ever really to get it into words to where I felt good about it, but like sharing it. But I was like, that's how I design. Just really a question I like to ask, because it's important to know what the most important thing is, like what your goal is for your website or what your brochure. If you could only have one thing on that page or on that flyer, what would that be? And you start from there. Like pare it right down very much to the essentials. And reading that book, I was like, this, yes, this is it.
Right, right. So I didn't know if there was anything else, but I know you and I specifically had talked about that book and how some of the principles, the core principles, we were both like, yes, that's it. And, but maybe we couldn't articulate it, but we were in agreement with a lot of his philosophy and a lot of, his approach to just all things, right? And really simplifying things and getting down to that core, what is that one thing? And then you can always go from there, but it eliminates a lot of the clutter.
Yes. And I think, in talking about how much the internet has changed, I mean, there really is a lot of clutter. And it's so easy to think, and I fall into this trap with my own business, because you create it, the products, you create the services, everything's really important, right? You want to know about everything, but you can't market everything at the same time. And sometimes you do have to let something go for a while. And I think it's important every so often to take a look at what you're offering and just, you know what? Maybe this goes away for a while and comes back somehow, somewhere different. But.
Right, right. Yeah, and I know that you work with people who are starting out and need to have some kind of graphic design work done. You have people that maybe are switching up the direction that they want to take their products and services or their business.
Rebrands are fun.
Or rebrands. Yeah. So talk a little bit about rebrands, because you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater if there's some good stuff in the brand.
Yes. When there's a rebrand, there's, like for you, we kept your blog because you weren't losing that piece of who you are and what you create. And so that it is like a content review, like going through, you keeping this page, or is it going to be a new about page? Maybe you just, need to add some stuff to it if it hasn't been updated in a while. And then sometimes, you're looking at it, this can just go away because it's not going to serve the new message or direction that the person wants to take. And I think that's a lot of fun, because when you go through your life, that's what happens. You realize you shift and you get rid of stuff and you declutter what's going on in your life, and to see people become bigger and more and grow, I think is just really exciting.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it's also really important to give things a proper burial, and let it go, know when to let it go, and to say this is no longer going to serve me. So it's the analogy with life, right? Like one of the things I'm doing right now is I'm going through my closet and I'm like, I would not put this on tomorrow to go to work. Why am I holding on to it?
Yes.
I can give this to someone who maybe would put it on and would be grateful to have it, and I can then have more space, right?
Yeah.
For the new to enter. And so really allowing to be intentional about those types of things. And I think branding and rebranding is the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important to you go in intentionally. It isn't just throwing something up there, or, I don't, if you're just going to throw it up there, I'd say don't.
Right.
It's important to take the time. I mean, if that's how you feel, like, is that how you feel about your business? Are you just throwing that out there? And it's like you said, once you make the commitment to something, then you're all in. And that feels really good when you go all in and you take the time to focus on it, because it takes longer. I think that some of it is that people they don't have the time. And I remember the first time I read the quote, if you don't have the time to do it right, do you have the time to do it again?
Right.
No. Just, spend 3 extra weeks and get it right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. I really do. And I think some people they either have ADD and they lose focus, or they lose patience, or, we have this instant gratification where we want it now. And especially if you don't know marketing, communications, and graphic design and web development, and know how long it really takes to do the work. So, you go through the discovery phase, you answer all those questions, you do your content review, then you need to allow some time for the graphic designer to really marinate in all of this, to really come up with their 3 or 4 comps or 2 comps or however many you've agreed to before, and then, to get to the right answer. And so you really do have to allow that time for it to be right, because then are you going to go do it over again, or like you really don't want to be doing it over again right behind when you've just finished it. You want it to have some shelf life, you want it to have some legs, you want it to serve a purpose for a while, and then, like you said, consistently look at what needs to be tweaked on the pages, or if a new landing page needs to be created, or something of that nature. So I'm sure you see all kinds of levels of patience with your clients.
I've been pretty fortunate. I think the hardest industry is the events industry. I worked in a company doing, they had pharmaceutical marketing and finance, and then I worked in an HR company that did specifically HR events, and that's quick turnaround, because sometimes by the time all the information comes to you, it comes late and you have to get it out quickly. But in working for myself, I have been very, very fortunate. And then when people decide to do it, they're like, okay, we're in.
Right, because then you're truly in partnership with them.
Yes, that is exactly how I feel about it.
You're a strategic partner. I mean, that's how I view you. You're not just a vendor to me. You're my strategic partner. You're giving me ideas about, well, what about this and what about this? And, have you thought about this? And so you're challenging me. And, I don't have the overhead of you're my full-time employee that needs benefits, but you're definitely my strategic partner. You know the vision that I have for what I want to create. You know kind of my personality and kind of how my background, all of that. And so I think that's a really good spot for you to be in with other entrepreneurs, other people that may have a side hustle or, have a business that's growing. And so, and you've worked in a lot of these different industries with a lot of different types of clients, with different budget levels, right? And so you have a pretty good feel for the number of hours it's going to take you to do your piece. And, if you can find somebody that is technically savvy, that can use Asana and Dropbox and work with you through the process, probably makes your life a lot easier.
It is. I know sometimes it feels like a project management system is an added layer of communication, but from my end, I'm not working with 1 or 2 people at a time. There's usually multiple people going on. So for me to just be able to go in and click on Tracy M's name, and then everything is right there, and I know everything for the podcast graphics was all in one place. It's time saving. It really is. And I think when you're working with a designer long term, it's really its benefits start to show when you have something that has to be done last minute. I already know you, and you're not kind of trying to explain what you want to somebody who doesn't know your brand. And that's why it's really great to do a website and then continue to work with somebody over a long term.
Right. And I'm sure you have a blend of that too. You have long-term clients and you have people that come to you through referral and things like that. So I have to ask you the question that I always ask everybody. What's the bravest thing that you've ever done? And how does it really inspire you today?
I'm going to have to say it's the motorcycling. I just got an article published in the American Motorcycle Association magazine, and it was about how motorcycling helped me to be more resilient, to be more mindful, because when you're riding a motorcycle, you have to really be present where you are. And, you know, when you drop the bike, you have to pick the darn thing back up and keep going. And I started to realize that I struggled with that in life. You know, I guess I would have considered being vulnerable for a minute here and admitting I don't always consider myself to be very resilient. But in the last, I think I've been riding for 8 years, it's made a huge difference in my life. And, you know, definitely sometimes it's scary, but most of the time it's just a really awesome adventure.
That's awesome. I'm glad you found something that was fun and taught you to be resilient and to pick yourself back up and to have courage and to not let scary things hold you back. And I'm really proud of you for getting your article published. I think that's huge. I mean, really huge that you were able to bring all that together. And I think, you know, when I look back on when I first met you and where you are now and what you're doing and all the changes that you've been through and all the decisions you've had to make. And, you know, I think that that's just so amazing that it all kind of came together and that your brand is about that. And that, I mean, you were able to learn from it. Now you're teaching other people. And so congratulations, Rayna. I'm just so happy for you.
Thank you. If you were here, I'd give you a big Rayna hug.
That's right. That's right. So for our listeners, Rayna is famous for her hugs. They are amazing, especially if you need a hug. So thank you so much, Rayna. I'm glad you could spend some time with us tonight and share your story and your process that you use as a graphic designer and a little bit about your personal life. So again, so if folks on air want to know where to find Rayna, you can go to www.goodfortunedesignstudio.com. So tell the listeners also, Rayna, about some of the free stuff that they can get from you in terms of branding.
If you go to goodfortunestudio.com/resources, there's a one-page sheet that I worked up about the basic building blocks of branding, because I feel it's one of those things that gets thrown around a lot, but isn't always clear. And so I took it to task and I distilled it down to some really simplified but clear statements. So happy to share that.
Okay, thanks. And we'll make sure that we put that in the show notes as well so people can find you online. So again, thanks to all our listeners for listening tonight to Rayna Diane Hennen. She's the founder and CEO of Good Fortune Design Studio, and we will talk to you soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. as much as I did creating it. Each show is produced with you, the listener, in mind, as you look for inspiration and motivation from other brave souls as you pursue your desires. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please leave me a review on iTunes. I read every one. And check out my website, tracym.com, for more free resources. You can also join my list and sign up for my newsletter right from the homepage. Until next time, stay strong, believe in your dreams, and go do something brave.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. and hope that you enjoyed the show. For more information about today's episode, as well as additional free resources to help you achieve greatness in your life, visit tracym.com and sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, dream big, believe in yourself, and let your brilliance shine as only you can do.